We talk about sometimes the fog of war kind of about this, and maybe that is what unfortunately happened in that situation. And not only what is used in this conflict, but where they are using it. I want to put this up here as well. Jennifer Griffin says the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh empty at the time of Iranian drone strike, saying no injuries. But in terms of what the United States is targeting, talking about ballistic missiles, nuclear capabilities, is there anything in your mind of what we're seeing in terms of those targets, over 1,000 already being struck right now, that signals a strategy from the United States?
Right. Well, I think the reports and the statements by administration officials, Secretary Rubio, for instance, this evening, look, first they went in and suppressed the air defenses. Got to get that done so that you can do everything else. Now they say they've established air supremacy. That's good. That means that you can drop gravity bombs with impunity, and you don't have to have that standoff capability that reduces the risk to pilots to do their jobs. And then obviously they're trying to hit the nuclear facilities, but it's really the ballistic missile apparatus. And actually that was the really interesting part of what Secretary Rubio said that was pretty blunt, is the production rates of missiles that have production rates of missiles like 100 a month or something like that, and of various drones that is just needed to be stemmed, fundamentally needed to be stemmed. And I think that's kind of the urgent reality here that hasn't really quite been emphasized enough, is time was not on our side. That time seemingly was on the side of the Iranians. Last summer, over the course of a long weekend, they fired hundreds and hundreds of missiles at Israel and the United States, and we had to expend many, many missile defense interceptors just to play catch temporarily, as it were, for those things. That is an unsustainable situation. And so I think what you're seeing here is we've kind of had enough. We're not going to take it anymore. And Israel can't afford to continue to do this. We can't afford to continue this. So frankly, I think we're kind of backed into the need to take this offensive operation to, no kidding, dismantle and fundamentally degrade their missile capability so they just stop doing this.
Yeah, and I want to get to that because that's an interesting point. Marco Rubio said this is why it happened now, not in a year's time. If this had happened in a year's time, would Iran be more able to sustain a longer conflict?
Well, I think it's a function of if they keep firing the missiles and we and our partners and our allies in the region run out of the means to stop them. And that's, I think, just the numbers game that seemed to be going on, and so that's why time wasn't on our side.
All right, my last question before I let you go, because this is 48 hours in, we could be seeing weeks of this. That's what President Trump is saying they have the capability to do it with the U.S. military might. What signals are you looking at? What other interesting facets are you looking at for maybe this going in the right direction for the base case scenario? What notes might be out there that you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, I think it's going to be real important just how much the situation on the ground, because it's going to be very hard to do this, everything from the air. It's really hard to believe that there wouldn't need to be at least special forces doing things, if no, for no other reason than to inspect and to try to get a sense of, hey, when we bomb a missile, an underground missile city, an underground missile tunnels, like was it successful, do we think? So we're going to have that confidence that this is working. And then in terms of other things to be watching, I think it's fundamentally comes down to seeing the job through. Last summer, frankly, it was sort of throwing the Iranian regime a lifeline to say, hey, peace, let's stop doing this. I don't think we could be throwing them a lifeline, and of course, that is a foregone conclusion for some Iranian leaders now. But no kidding, it needs to be seen through. If the argument that's been laid out is that this program has to be completely degraded and gotten rid of, then let's make sure that gets done before we stop, because it's not going to get easier in the future.
That is very true, and obviously U.S. intelligence was so very critical to the initial strike to cut off that head of the snake with the Ayatollah, that obviously the after action, what's going on, to learn from it as well, is very important. All right, Tom, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, your insight here on Live Now.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, great conversation. Tom Carrico with CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, talking about some of those capabilities of the U.S. military, of what's going on some 48 hours right now into this. And we're also talking about the response from Iran into Israel and other countries there neighboring. So you can see there from the U.S. Embassy in Riyadh saying a security alert, a shelter in place. The U.S. mission to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, security alert. We heard also from Jennifer Griffin saying no injuries. The embassy in Riyadh was empty at the time of this Iranian drone strike, saying no injuries. It was interesting to note that Tom Carrico talked about those one-way drones that were used. They said they were reverse engineered from something that Iranians had used prior, calling it somewhat poetic justice for what's going on there. It is able to make them at a much cheaper clip and obviously have less U.S. Service members involved in direct conflict. All right, we're following all of this here closely on Live Now from Fox. I do want to